Hello and welcome to Eternal Joy MCC. Our church is an LGBTQ+ community church located in the heart of downtown Dayton, Ohio. And for over 40 years, our church has served the greater Dayton, Ohio region. Metropolitan Community Churches was founded by Reverend Troy Perry in 1968 so that gay people would have a safe place to grow closer to God. And still to this day, we stay true to his mission, spreading God's love throughout the world. We would like to invite you to our church. We are located at the local LGBT center in the heart of downtown Dayton, Ohio. And our service times are at 1:30 p.m. on Sundays, and all are welcome to join our church. The LGBT center address is 24 North Jefferson Street, Dayton, Ohio 45402. Suite 200. We ask that you take the elevator to the second floor, and we are located in the Grand Hall. We also offer free parking, which is behind the Old Mosque nightclub. All are welcomed at our church, no matter your sex, race, or religion. We accept you for who you are. Please come and join us on Sundays at 1:30 p.m. at the local LGBT center in Dayton, Ohio. All are welcome. If you would like to know more about our church, please visit us at our website at www.eternaljoymccdayton.com or visit us on Facebook. Keyword search Eternal Joy MCC. You may also donate to our church, and the link is in the description box below. For all other information is also in the description box below. And from all of us at Eternal Joy MCC, may the love of God be with you always. Thank you, and God bless you.
The first reading is from Genesis chapter 9, 8 to 15. Then God said to Noah and to all his sons with him, "As for me, I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the domestic animals, and the animals of the earth with you, as many came out of the ark. I will establish my covenant with you, that as never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. And never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth." God said, "This is the sign of the covenant that will make between me and you and every living creature that is with you, for all future generations. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I remember my covenant that is between me and you, and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh."
I am Richard Young, and I am one of the priests for the Living Beatitudes community, the Ministry of Dignity Dayton, and always good to share my faith with the good folks here at MCC. I've preached at MCC many times over the years, and I don't know if I've got this right or not. I guess
You got it right.
Good.
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you. So, but I've done it many times, and I've always found it to be an enjoyable experience. I admire your faith, and I shared these reflections with my faith community just this morning. I have a 10 o'clock liturgy on Sunday mornings by Zoom. We do it on Zoom, and it works. And we get a good number of people. And when I first wrote this, I wrote it largely with our faith community in mind, but it really applies, I think, to what all Christians go through. So let's keep that in mind. And we have started Lent, our second Lent of the pandemic. Although some have observed that it seems like Lent of 2020 never stopped. Many must hunker down where they feel safe, understandably afraid to touch others or to break bread with them. Add to that the deadly effects of racism and climate change and a crumbling economy, and the need for Lenten reform and renewal couldn't possibly be more obvious. But hope springs eternal. Now, I'm not sure how it works in other Christian denominations, but I can tell you how things are in the Catholic Church. In spite of these gloomy conditions, in Catholic parishes throughout the world, folks we call catechumens are beginning their preparations for baptism. I suspect a lot of Protestant churches do the same thing throughout Lent. Catechumen, from the Greek and Latin, meaning one being instructed. They will be instructed throughout Lent and then baptized at Easter, where they will also receive confirmation and Eucharist, the three sacraments of initiation. I like to call them sacraments of belonging. Theologian Richard McBrien defines baptism as the sacrament of rebirth, by which one becomes a member of the church and a new creation in Christ. Catechumens will tell you that after this ritual, they do indeed feel like new creatures, excited to belong sacramentally to the body of Christ. We are social animals. We need to belong. Psychologist Abraham Maslow identified a hierarchy of needs to explain human motivation. And the need for love and belonging is said to be so basic that only physiological and safety needs motivate us more. When I'm being chased by a bear, belonging suddenly doesn't seem so important. Dr. Brene Brown, the popular author and social sciences researcher, wrote, "A deep sense of love and belonging is an irreducible need of all people. We are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. When these needs are not met," she wrote, "we don't function as we're meant to. We break, we fall apart, we ache, we hurt others, we get sick." The sad consequences of not really belonging. Catechumens can identify with that. So can psychologically wounded kids who look to just about anything to satisfy that need, including gangs. Father Gregory Boyle, director of the world's largest gang intervention and rehabilitation program, wrote, "Gangs are bastions of conditional love. And one of the ways to counteract it is to offer community, which will always trump gangs." People live so much of their lives in what seems like gangs, groups in which their belonging is conditional. You can work here for now, but one screw up and you're out of here. You can be a member of this club if you can pay the dues and obey the rules. You're welcome at the family reunion if you don't bring your same-sex spouse. You can be an honored resident of this neighborhood, but you have to be the right color, or go to the right church, or vote the right way. When we can't find what we truly want, respect and freedom and love and acceptance, when there is an absence of real belonging, we accept fake. Folks tend to stick with their gangs where belonging has conditions, where there are ifs and buts to navigate. They will stay with them for lack of something better. As flawed as our churches surely are, we try to be that something better. We try to offer that community that Father Boyle mentioned. Catechumens see that effort and really want to be a part of us. They need to belong, genuinely belong. Having worked with many catechumens in parishes over the years, I can tell you that most are amazingly enthusiastic when it comes to learning about and enhancing their faith. Catechumens generally are downright excited, truly focused about diving into the faith and building bonds with a church community to which they have chosen to belong. Having been inspired by the life of the radically inclusive Jesus, they want to take seriously what he says in today's gospel. This is the time of fulfillment. The reign of God is at hand. Change your hearts and minds and believe in the good news. Catechumens can't wait to be baptized. They want to live as Jesus did, to be one of his disciples. They look forward to instruction, to discussing theology and church customs and practices, and to do so with people who are happy to tell them, you are one of us. Belonging. In many parishes, the catechumens attend Sunday Lenten services and listen to the same readings you hear and the homily. Then they and a parish catechist go off by themselves and share their thoughts and apply the message to their everyday lives. All in preparation for those Easter rites that make them sacramentally belong to this family of faith. It's a wonderfully inspiring process that has the potential to spiritually renew the whole community. I sure hope a lot of Protestant churches out there have that same experience. Baptism is a strong theme in today's Lenten readings. In our second reading from the first letter of Peter, the author says the Noah story, our first reading, it sees it as a symbol of baptism. He wrote that Noah and his family were brought to safety through the water of the great flood. He says further, that water prefigured the water of baptism through which you are now brought to safety. Safety, as I see it, is a kind of synonym for belonging. The water of baptism through which you are now brought to belonging. Baptism, I think, should be a promise that says to the catechumen, this is safe harbor from the gangs in your life. Here, love is unconditional. Here, you have the freedom to explore the meaning of your faith, and you can become the most wild-eyed heretic and still belong among us for as long as you want. No conditions, none. Of course, that may be somewhat true for some local communities, but we know that church officials often have conditions. They do expect orthodoxy and enforce it with the threat of excommunication. How imperfect we are. Our second reading's author defines baptism as a pledge to God by a good conscience. Catechumens do indeed make such a pledge, but we who welcome them, we who give them belonging, make a pledge as well. It is a promise to also be people of conscience, to be moral agents responsible to model what it means to reform one's life and believe in the good news. We agree to show the world the love of Christ, a love with no conditions, none. That's our baptismal promise. In that fictional story of Noah, the end of which was our first reading today, God does not come off looking very good. Divine love is shown to be clearly conditional. You live sinfully, and you don't belong. You're dead to me. The story says that God was sick at heart because God found all people, except Noah, to be wicked and corrupt, and God regretted creating them. So God decided to start all over by washing away the whole mess with the great flood, sparing only Noah and his family. But in the end, God changes. God establishes a covenant, a pledge, with the rainbow as a sign of it. The gay preacher is bound to notice that. But some commentators on this story suggest that the rainbow is actually God's bow, as in bow and arrow. God disarms. When you see a rainbow, it means that God's weapon is set aside. God promises to never destroy the earth again, no matter how sinful humankind becomes. If it happens, we will have done it to ourselves. It seems that the only way to be sure we don't do it to ourselves is to create community, to address the human need to belong unconditionally. We create community when we change our hearts and minds and believe in the good news that the reign of God is at hand, close by. Belonging happens when we retire the weapon of excommunication and exclusion and turn it into something beautiful and welcoming and full of color and promise. Now, I don't know if you had the same readings we had last Sunday, but the folks in my community would recall that last Sunday was Leper Sunday. The Old Testament reading and the Gospel were about lepers and about their banishment because they were called unclean. The Gospel reading told of how Jesus, moved with compassion, performed a healing for such a man, ending his lonely isolation. The preacher in our community spoke beautifully about the work of restoring the lepers among us to the communities from which they had been separated, making them belong again. Belonging. She spoke of the late psychotherapist and theologian Father John McNeil and his work to restore LGBTQ plus folks to the communities that rejected them. She noted the radical efforts of Dorothy Day, who did the same for the poor, and Bill Wilson, founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, creating community for the chemically dependent. All these visionaries saw the rainbow and remembered the covenant, as Noah's God remembered it. A promise to put aside our weapons and offer a love without condition to a broken world, so that all, without exception, could belong. The planet's problems can't be solved without that. This week, one of our members sent me a piece from the National Catholic Reporter, a newspaper, about a statement of support for LGBTQ plus persons, signed, get this, by nearly half of the priests of the Lexington, Kentucky diocese, Roman Catholic priests. It says, the statement says, "We, your pastors and priests, stand with you, oppose any form of violence directed toward you, and denounce bullying, harmful rhetoric, and harassment directed at you." We pledge to honor, defend, support, and celebrate your dignity in our words and actions, because you are beloved members of the church and reflections of God who created you, loves you more than you can ever begin to imagine, and is on your side. You are beloved members of the church. That's remembering the covenant. Our baptismal promises compel us to continue the restoration work of Jesus and McNeil and Day and Wilson and the priests of the Lexington, Kentucky diocese, and to bring that work to fulfillment. It strikes me that working to break down the barriers to belonging is a good way to live out this season of renewal. We have no catechumens among us, but that universal need for belonging is there just the same. And the world is still full of people settling for conditional community. And why would anybody settle for that when the reign of God remains at hand?